Hello, I'm ED-SKaR and welcome to another little bit of a painting stream. I have some models and almost all of them are the same ones that we painted last time because I haven't finished them yet. Although I do have some others that we haven't necessarily seen. I don't think we saw this on stream previously. This is a Hargo for my Japanese, and I suspect that the Hargo might actually be rather good in Konflikt47, so I wanted to have one around. It's also a nice fun little thing to have in bolt action as well, so there we go. Over here somewhere I have a Chiha, which I'm painting up side by side with it. Paint scheme is the same. This has had its wash because this is a little further ahead in painting. This is just needs the odd touch up before I give it a wash today. Andre, hi, how you doing? I also have, of course, the Schwertruppen that I've been painting forever and still haven't really got very far with. I've put on the decals. I put the Balkan Crews on their shoulder pads, and that's all done. So I think these guys actually just need to go for the dark wash for them. And out of focus here, let's bring them up a few at a time. This is part of what we did last time. The ghosts with that really shiny visor. And I'm really glad that that acid effect is as glossy as it is, because it's shiny in real life and it's shiny on camera. So got some work to do on them. We've also got Gunso, again, shiny visor, slightly different design. I really like this model. This is such a cool one. I think the only kind of oddities, other than the Daughter of the Motherland Shibito, that we need to do is this guy. Just a samurai meditating quietly on the ground. I think I actually want to start with him. Because he's going to take absolutely no time flat to paint. And I have not been organised enough to actually have sorted out any of my stuff. So I'm going to have to grab some things. So this is my blue paint that I've been using for the Japanese, which, if anyone remembers this Citadel pot from the old days, you can see there's very little left. Very, very little indeed. Yeah, this is just this thin layer of paint. I'm surprised that this is still good. These pots are better pots than the new Games Workshop ones. These ones get clogged. You get clogged around the rim where it seals. You get paint in there, it clogs, it dries. In fact, you can see here, all of that paint there is letting air get in and out of this paint pot, and so these dry out really quickly. Comparatively, quite quickly. Whereas this, from more than 20 years ago, I'm still using. Andre says, I can see the details a lot clearer than last time. Different setup. Exactly the same setup. I have been kind of adjusting things. It's more about focus settings than anything else. I still haven't been able to work out any way to get the auto brightness to lock for the auto brightness to work. even though there is, in theory, a button to turn off the auto white balance, it just doesn't seem to work. So I still get that. Just automatically flickering, and I want to set it to a point and just have it stay there. Right, let's paint up a little samurai. I need to sort my paintbrushes better, because every time I pick them up, I need to go through them and work out which one I actually want to use. Because all of these are the same brush, but they're just older. If you see, that one in the middle is the longest one and it's the sharpest one, so that's the one we'll use. I'm actually not sure what the points value is for our next conflict game. I should check on that. I think we've pushed up to 1250. I'm almost certain I have. No, the thing is, my head is very reflective and shiny. I have moved some of the lights as well, just to give a slightly better. The problem is, so I've got two lights. One is there and one is there. This one's probably in the right place, although it could come back a little bit. This one isn't. This one's further forwards. I wish I could detach that camera and actually show you, but it's not going to work. But the camera up here really should be back here. But this is where the camera is. It should be like here, which would ruin that camera view. But also, it would need to be positioned right because the mounting for this camera is over here. Yeah. Just in general, I'm using like scrap bits from Poundland. Because I earn nothing off of the channel, so that, I think I need to refresh that paint. I need to go and buy some more blue for definite, because that's running out and I'm not going to get the same blue, and I know that, but I want to get something that's at least close. Where's my paint water? There you are. So the other thing about this camera here, this one, that I don't like is that the sensor is in the middle. You can see it's fairly wide. You see it's fairly wide, but the actual camera is right here in the middle. And that means it's getting in the way more than it really should. When I film with like a phone, I have it like this, and so the sensor here is all the way, like nearly at the very end, so I can have that positioned much more neatly. But that phone does not work, or at least it doesn't work as a webcam. I could come up with all sorts of ideas for how I would want an ideal setup to be. pretty intricate armor on this one. So largely, this samurai is pretty much just going to be painted in exactly the same paint scheme as my other Konflikt47 samurai models. So all of the armor is going to be brown, light brown, wash, and then highlight again with the same light brown, which is this current step. And then after that, it gets a tan highlight. Or like a specular tan highlight. Do I have... I think they're downstairs. I have another unit of assault frames that I've kind of digitally kit bashed out of some suitable models. That will hopefully be my video for this week. Bit of a print defect right there. If you see that dark line, there's a little bit of a crack. Yeah, it's actually going off into his shoulder as well. Looks like a layer, a bad layer in the print. Not too bad though. Andre says it's battle damage. It is. I actually printed a few of this specific model, and I've picked the worst one for myself. The others I've handed out to friends. Quite happy to have... I think we spoke about this in the last stream, didn't we? About... damage and like mistakes in the paint job and stuff like that. It's just it's the history of the piece. Kind of it's someone said it's the soul of the model. I'm not sure if that was you or someone else. got a lot of intricate stuff on this helmet. I've noticed I paint helmets in some different ways. So sometimes I'll paint like the main part of the helmet blue, and then the side extra bits and details get the brown. And sometimes I just paint the entire helmet brown, and that's what I've done in this case. Some things don't need to be too consistent. I like that I've ended up with this black band here completely accidentally, just because it's kind of protected from highlights. It is as it is. Gonna have to be a bit more careful on this one. The armour on his back is not as strongly pronounced as it is elsewhere. So I'm not just able to run the brush over it and allow it to catch. I have to actually paint it. Oh. So which bit is... Yeah, I think I mentioned this before. This sculpt is really finely detailed. Just everything about it. Every way you look on this model is just finer detail than you can paint. But this line here, can you see how there's a bit of texture on it? That's a rope belt. I think one of my friends said that they were going to paint it like gold and bronze as a statue. And genuinely, this as a statue, that sounds pretty cool to me. Is this red here on the wet palette, is that even remotely still good? I don't think so. I don't think there's enough left. Yeah, that's not covering well at all. More red. Actually, that's the point. Is there any red on the ghosts? I don't think there is. A lot of my Japanese Konflikt47 models have they're largely blue with the brown armor being quite a lot of the model, but then there's a lot, and then there's just this tiny little splash of red somewhere like the assault frames, and the Ashigaru have the Sashimono, the back flag, in red. The assault frames also have their can't remember the name of it, but the grotesque mask in the same bright red. But the other unit of assault frame that I've just finished painting, their main color is red, so they're going to be red with the brown armor, and then black is their secondary. That's what that needs. That's going to be good. Right, let's go for some blue and be careful not to waste it. Oh, Andre says, do you prefer detailed or smooth models? I have more trouble highlighting smooth ones. That's an interesting thing. Oni. Yes, I think that's right. The mask is called the Oni. Yes, I think that is right. Not 100%. So smooth versus detailed models. It depends on your painting style. And there's definitely something to be said for both, because a very highly detailed model, you can dry brush over it and pick out all the detail, and then like pick out a little bit of color here and there and be done. Whereas on a smooth model, you can block out each area in a base coat and then give a nice smooth simple highlight everywhere and be done. So for a simple paint job, either type of model works really well. But when you actually get into painting properly, like you actually want to spend time on a model and really like get into the artistry of it all, you kind of run out of steam with what you can achieve on a model with loads of detail. Because it's like, if every little, take this one for example, there's every little divot and rivet on this armor, I can paint all those in, but there's not much else I can do. Now there are things you can do, like you can paint a nice gradient underneath that, which I haven't done. However, when you have a much more like a smoother model, it gives you the space to actually paint deliberately. I think that's one thing. That's kind of what I'm getting at, is how deliberate are you about painting? Are you just kind of following what's there on the model, or are you like making choices about kind of how you want it to look, what are the important aspects that you want to pick out? And so for a wargaming model, I would prefer a moderate amount of detail so that you can block out a few things in different colors, give it a wash, little simple highlight, and be done. They look great. Not a great deal of effort goes in. And yeah, you can churn through those and they look great on the tabletop. Whereas every now and again I like painting a really nicely detailed model and actually spend my time on it. And for things like that type of model, I want to paint deliberately, and I want to, I want to wet blend a bit. I want to try a new technique here or there. I want to pick out all the different things that's in the sculpt, but also imply more than what's actually physically there. I'm going to take a risk. Underneath his hands, you can see parts of his uniform under there. I'm gonna try and delve into there. And so, if I'm I got it. Can you see that? Oh, yeah, there you go. That's what I got just there. So yeah, on a for a model that I'm like that I want to paint myself and kind of spend a long time on, I actually would prefer big open. Hello, Johnny. Just give me 1 second. I'll respond to your message in a moment. Yeah, so for a model that I actually want to spend some time on, I'd prefer less detail in the sculpt so that I've got those big open areas to actually kind of do my own painting in, to make some gradients, to put in some texture. I think one, who is it? There's a painter I was watching a while back who was talking about painting busts. Might have been Vince Venturella. And he was talking about painting in 1/10 scale. He wants a nice smooth like face so that he can paint in the pores of the model. And it's like that's the kind of thing I'm thinking of, where you want to go, okay, here's the cheek and here's the shape of the eye and the eye socket, but then you go in and paint in the pores yourself. So Johnny Summers just popped up and says, it's just appeared on the recommended page, first time visitor. Hi, how you doing? Lovely. Lovely model. Where did you get it? This is from Thingiverse. It's a 3D print. Is it from Thingiverse? Somewhere I have it saved. Unfortunately, I don't have it at the moment. What I can do is throw it in the description once the stream ends. I'll make sure that goes in, as long as someone reminds me. But yeah, it's a free 3D print. It's really, really nice model. It is. Like, can you see his moustache? The sculpt of this model is better than the quality of this camera. You can't actually see as much detail as there is in there. And yes, it is very nice. Are you planning to use it in Konflikt47, assuming it will be a Japanese assault frame officer? That is exactly correct. I have very much fallen for the assault frame. Partially because there's very little in the way of options for the Japanese at the moment. And having a couple of squads with Shibori rifles is great, but they're not like super powerful. They're solid middle of the road, like good units. That's both the battle frame with Shiboru and also the regular like veteran squad with Shiboru and no armor. But when it comes to like the biggest amount of damage you can put out as the Japanese, I think that is the assault frame at the moment. We do have the ghosts as well, and I've got some ghosts that I'll be painting up in a little bit. I almost want to like scale this up, like paint this in 1/12 scale or something. Hey James, how you doing? Got to finish my Percival. Yep. Some more Konflikt47 being painted at the moment. That's always good. So this here is sort of what I'm thinking about, what I was mentioning earlier about having a nice smooth area where you can actually choose how you want to paint it. Because on kind of the trouser leg here, there is a couple of lines that are like seams in the clothing, which, again, this is a really nicely detailed model. But I'd almost rather this particular part of the model be a little smoother so that I could have an easier time putting in a bit of a gradient of a highlight here rather than just following those seams. Because I want to have it highlighted here, which is like the bulge of the muscle there, and then darken it here underneath the leg, and then again have a little bit of a, not as bright as that, but a little bit brighter up here. But with these seams, it's kind of guiding me into painting the seams. Yes, the Guardian called Percy and the Percival called Gardy. Gordy? Gordon. You call it Gordon and nickname it Gordy, because then it's Percy and Gordy. Johnny says, that would be great. I'll make sure to check back after the description for the file. Got around 3,000 points of access in American, but the call of the Japanese is strong. I have a large pot. This here, if you're new to the channel, you will not recognize it, but this is a bookcase that I've added loads of extra shelves to, and on this bookcase is my entire pile of opportunity, right? All of the models I haven't finished painting yet are up here, well, except for the ones that are on the table, right? And most of those are in egg carton lids. So if you notice this, 6 for range eggs. It is the lid of an egg carton, which I find very convenient for moving models around in. And I've got a 12-pack lid with my Americans, and a 12-pack lid with my Axis, and then another 12-pack lid with all of my bolt action stuff that I haven't gotten around to yet. That doesn't look right. Why do you not look right? Who is it? This was a while back on another painting stream where I glazed black just like I've just done there. That looks much better. And someone was in stream saying it's impossible to glaze black while I was on camera glazing black. Yeah, Johnny, if you pop back, if I haven't put it in the description, post a comment and then I'll respond to your comment with a link to the appropriate model. James says, paint it blue. Now it's Percy and Gordon. Oh no. And do you need one called Thomas? Yeah, I need another walker called Thomas and paint the faces on them all. Thomas the Combat Walker. Yeah. That's great. Because then you need a couple of trucks called Clarence and Annabelle, right? Transport trucks. I have noticed that the tin plate O gauge railway set that I got recently, all like someone at work dumped some broken, nasty stuff on me, which I'm very appreciative of because it's awesome. And there was a broken passenger carriage, and it looks very much like Clarence and is it Clarence and Annabelle from Thomas the Tank Engine? I don't remember. But that is becoming a roadside building, almost certainly. I think several people have suggested that, and it was kind of what I was thinking of already, because I going to the effort of making bogies for it, because it currently doesn't have anything in the way of bogies. Shoulder here. Andre says, you mentioned a few people played the Japanese. Could you take a pic of your and their version of the same model at a future tournament, just to see some different takes? Do you mean the painting of this exact same sculpt, like the models from the starter set that I got and the models they got, or do you mean you want to see my converted assault frame versus official ones? Because I can do both. The thing with taking pictures of other people's models is, firstly, I mean, most people give me permission, that's fine, but it's organising it. Because most of the time when we're at an event, we're getting stuck into a game, and then straight away we're getting stuck into the next game, and we don't. And we've got plenty of time to sit around and chat. It's not like we're rushing around. But I just need to remember to take pictures and things. Universal Carrier is in bright orange. Oh, for Annie and Clarabelle. Coke in my eye. Andre says you'll also need Ringo Starr to narrate your games. James says until Age of Empires 2 came out. And Age of Empires 2. About a year ago I went back to replay Age of Empires 2, and it's not the game that I wanted it to be, but it is awesome. I can't put on the voice. I cannot put on the voice. I can't remember it. It's kind of... The thing is, it's a bit of a BBC, even though, obviously, Liverpudlian, but it's a bit of a BBC kind of formal version of his voice. So James says, "Oh no," said Thomas, as he obliterated a Shrek Wolfen with his 5,000-volt Tesla cannon. "I'm going to be late. The Fat Controller is going to be so angry if we don't liberate Sodor by Christmas." Oh man! The Battle of Sodor. James, add it to the list. Andre says, preferably the same, but a style example will do. With their consent, of course, yes. So, yeah. We've got a few guys playing Japanese, not a great deal, and I know quite a few of them haven't necessarily painted the whole collection yet. Not everyone has the opportunity to. There is one guy who's got Gunso and has painted it really nicely, so that'll actually be a good one to compare. Let's all laugh at this. That nasty remnants of this paint. I am relying on, between this and this, these are two of the paints that I need for painting my Japanese, and they are dried up and running out. Look at how much there is left of them. Nothing. The blue's a problem because I need a lot of it, but the tan's really not an issue because I can replace that with... It's just, this is kind of a yellowy tan. It's, well, if you can read that, it says sand. So the color is just sand, but it's it's a very yellowy tan. I actually quite appreciate it because it's one of the few times that I actually get on with painting yellow. No, that's too wet. Where's my... Let's dry out the brush a bit. That's better. So now I'm going to go over the armor with a purely specular technique, because that then lets all of the detail of the sculpt come out while adding a little bit of texture to it. Holy cow, that's a scenario. It's going on the list. Yes. I mean, if we're going to do the Battle of Sodor, can we do the Battle of Tracy Island? So one thing I'm trying to do with this highlight, the specular highlight, is to make it a little bit random. But if you don't think about how you're placing highlights when you're trying to make something random, you will fall into a pattern. It's just a little bit of human psychology that humans like patterns. And so you sort of have to look at what you've done before and deliberately break the pattern, which inherently means it's not random. But it appears more random than if you'd have just let yourself paint with no restrictions, because you subconsciously will make a pattern. And that's something that I learned by doing the Tanith cloaks many, many years ago. The Axis have taken Thunderbird 5. Go and stop them. I'm coming up with all sorts of absolute nonsense. How many Shrek Wolfen can you fit in Thunderbird 2? See, here's a good thing. Kind of an example of what I was explaining in a previous live stream. Damage to a model, or like a bad bit of a paint job, or if you drop a model off a table and it break its arm off, something like that. I always try and kind of include kind of that in the model. You're going to repair it, obviously, you're going to fix up stuff, but don't try and get it back to the point where you never know that it was damaged in the first place. Kind of include that in in the piece. And that's what I'm doing here. Because you can now see quite clearly this line across here. That's a print defect. That's a skipped layer or a compressed layer, I'm not sure. But that layer, and it actually goes into his back here as well, has failed. And rather than painting it in such a way to hide it, I've actually highlighted it. You can see all the way along there, I've highlighted that edge. Because that's now damage to the armor. At some point in this samurai's life, someone's gotten on his left-hand side and given him a good old strike on that armor plate. And that is now part of the model, part of the history of the piece. Just like we mentioned earlier, like free. Who said free battle damage? Someone said free battle damage. Still unsure. Says evening, everybody. Hey, how you doing? James says it's much better than Tehran from this weekend. I think the Tehran idea was great. It's just very unfortunate about, the real world that just coincided with that quite horribly. Still unsure says not to go full 40k, but with Warlord doing a massive Walker display, what do you feel would be bigger weapons that Konflikt47 factions could get? Do you mean the linebacker that they scaled up to the massive one? Johnny says, got to go. Catch you on the live stream. See you around. I'm live streaming pretty much every Monday at the moment, just once a week. I might end up streaming more than that if things go well, but for the moment, just on Mondays. So one thing that I've noticed in Konflikt47 is that there is this kind of like scaling of all of the weapons. So, for example, the Tesla, you've got the Tesla Thompson, the submachine gun. You've got the Temsa light machine gun, which is the Tesla heavy rifle, I think it's called. Then you've got the light Tesla cannon and the heavy Tesla cannon. And it's the same for some of the others, like Shibori rifle, light Shibori cannon, heavy Shibori cannon. There's a Luger version of the Schwerlight weapon, as well as an MP40 variant, and the machine Schwer, which is on the things like the Vogelspinner, and then there's the heavy Schwer cannon, Schwerkanone, on the Panther, and others. So the same weapon or the same concept can be scaled up and down. And I think that's for all of them to an extent. And so what we could see is just, I assume what you're talking about is Titans. Like a kind of a Warhound Titan sized mech. It would be kind of cool, but it just takes the game in a direction that I'm less interested in. I like my dorky armored cars and my little mechs, things like the Vogelspinner and the Scorpion, and the Guardian. And and the Cossack. I'm going to finish off this model and then I'm going to show off the Cossack. because I definitely want to show that off, because that's had some work since the last time we showed it. Still Unsure says the German Giant Walker. Is that the one with the plasma ball in it? Because I have a plasma ball now. And a 3D printer and several decades of model making experience. I might be making. James, you know what that thing's called? Because I can't remember. Because it actually is in the lore. And it has a name. I can't remember what it is. Yes. I have this pot of paint right in front of me, and I tried to wash my brush by sticking it in the pot of paint and swirling it around. That clearly was never going to work. Stormraiser? Rules coming out soon in Warlords. Yeah, that kind of was to be expected. I like infantry squads and little armored cars and dorky, like, walking robots. Like, I don't want the big stuff. It's fine. We'll just have to come up with an equivalent of Rattenkrieg, which is definitely going to be very different in Conflict. Walker War and Tank War are going to be roughly the same, but the Rattenkrieg equivalent, sorry for knocking the camera there, is going to be quite different. James says Soviets have mind control towers, and there are hints the British have built something under Bletchley Park. Storm Giant. Sturmreich says Storm Giant. Okay. No, that was way too much. Could you show... Andre says, can you show the Japanese lady you painted last time? I'd like to see it with the cam settings. Japanese lady? What, on the last stream? The only lady model I have been painting recently is this, who is a Soviet model. There we go. So she's been base coated and washed. I have not done any highlighting yet. My zombie skin for the Shibito is kind of purple and grey. Brown trousers, green armour, and then the greatcoat in purple. Sorry, in red with a purple shadow. So there's a lot of highlighting needs to be done on her. I think I'll need to paint that arm in with bone colours. It looks like skin still hanging off of her hand. It's like this kit. This is the Warlord Games. This is the Warlord Games. Zombie Survivors sprues from Project Z, which is now out of production, and it's such a shame because there are some brilliant kits in there. The Biker's sprue is amazing. The modern soldiers, the modern military, is just gold. You can make modern British army out of that. You can make SWAT teams and Black Ops teams. I know some people are making like Ukrainians and Russians, like really modern stuff as well. There's just so many things you can do about that. Andre says, yes, missed the Russian bit. How did you miss the Russian bit? How? The hammer and sickle are tools of the worker. Sill and Shaw says, where are the Japanese warlords? Retainers? Not sure what that means. James says, your FAO. Also don't know what that means. Right. Let's just finish up the helmet of this guy, because then he is done. Out of focus YouTube channel and bad vision. Well, I'm sorry for my end of that. See, we were talking about camera settings earlier today. The one thing I really want to do, and it will cost several £100, which I don't really have, is to get a proper high-spec DSLR with all of the removable like lenses and stuff, because everything I've had so far, pretty much every camera I've ever had has had a fixed physical lens, and so the only zoom you get is by cropping, right? Digital zoom is just cropping. It's not actually zooming. It's just enlarging the detail that's there, which means you lose resolution. And the reason why that's important is because the best way to take a picture of something small, especially when you want to keep it in focus when it's moving around like this is to put the camera much further away. So I want the camera to be like that. It would actually be over here, but this far away rather than this far away. Because the way that focal range works, let's see if I can show this off. If I get too close to the camera, it's out of focus. If I get to just the right distance, it's in focus. And if I go further away, it's out of focus again. So there is a range from about there to about there where you can see it. And obviously the closer to the middle of that area, the better focus you get. That's your focal plane. And it's not actually a plane, it's more of an oval, but that's beside the point. So you can see that I've only got this amount of movement, which is that far. That's how far I can move the model and keep it in focus. That's not a lot. But that's a ratio, a percentage of the distance from the camera. So if I make the camera 4 times further away and put it up here, then that becomes that. So I can now move the model around a whole bunch more, and it will stay in focus the whole time because the camera's further away. But I can't do that with these cameras, because if I move this camera far away and just digitally zoom in, you're going to have 17 pixels of model. And sure, it's in focus, but you can't see it because it's not enough resolution. I think, I lost track of where I was. in that little rant. Yeah, so a proper DSLR with a physical zoom lens so that I can move the camera further away and physically zoom in will give a much better... I mean, firstly, you get better like options and settings, and I can turn off the damn auto features, which I despise. But here's the thing about auto settings on cameras. I'm quite happy to have an auto setting on a camera so that I can set up and have an easier time setting up. I just let it auto focus and auto level and also white balance and stuff. But then I want it to stay there. I don't want it to constantly be adjusting as I'm going, especially when I'm talking. One of the cameras, I think it's actually... I didn't mean to do that. I just threw my brush across the... Still unsure, none of that, thank you. Family friendly stream. What was I talking about? Cameras or something? I think we're done. I think this guy is now complete. Did not take long at all. Just a little bit of work highlighting the uniform and the armour. A little bit of red for the sash. Oh, yeah, I haven't done his skin. Alright. I have nothing on my wet palette. So as much as people hate the new Games Workshop paint pots, and I hate them as well, I have to say that these old P3 pots are worse. I love the paints. These P3 paints are really nice, but the pots are awful. Camera and ranges, yes. Does everyone understand what I was getting at with focal range? Like this little bubble where you're in focus, and if you move the camera further away, that bubble gets bigger. But to move the camera further away, you need a physical zoom lens, not like a digital zoom like these cameras have and that one has and your phone has. You need a physical zoom lens so that you can actually zoom in on something and still have full resolution at that distance. Maybe someday. For now, it's a lot better than last stream. Yeah, I think the biggest change is the positioning of the lights, which is still not ideal, but it is slightly improved. Yeah, I was saying about these pots being a bit rubbish. Just got paint all over my hand just from putting the lid back on. I mean, I've got paint all over my hand from painting, but that was my choice. And the Games Workshop pots, you always get that dried up nonsense in there. Do I have a spiky big? I have a this. Yeah, all of that that just gets into the lip of the lid, dries up, and then it prevents the lid from closing properly, which then lets air into the rest of the paint pot, and the whole thing dries up. And how are you meant to do these things like without getting paint on your hands? This little tooth holds open the lid. That's a nice idea, but how do you get it back? Nah. I want to close the pot. Got it. Right. And I got paint all over my hands there as well. The two worst paint pots in existence. The modern Citadel and the old P3. They've changed their design. I think the aquacolor stuff, like this square pot, isn't that good either. It's got a nice design, but it just doesn't work how they intend it to. So if you see on the side of the pot here, there's this little tab and a little slot. And you also have this angle to the lid. So the way that you can open this, if you get paint dried around the inside that seals it shut, instead of trying to pull the paint, instead of trying to pull the pot up, you can actually twist, and that angle will give will just kind of as a camming force will actually pop the lid off. So that's a really nice design, and it can get really clogged up in here sometimes, but that little twist breaks it and pops it open. But then that tab and that slot, you can put that on there, and you've got a little dry palette. The lid of the pot becomes a dry palette, so that you can grab some paint and mix it with some water here and paint from there. I don't know anyone who would paint that way, but you can, and that's how this was designed. So it's odd that this pot has had more effort into its design than any of the other pots, but it's still not good because pots aren't good. Dropper bottles for the win. Although actually I think tubes are superior to bottles. And the only distinction there is that a tube, you compress it as you go, and so you don't have air refilling it. Whereas with a bottle, when you squeeze it, you put the paint out, and then as you let go, it pulls air in. So over time, this gets more and more filled with air. And so it does dry out over time, whereas a tube, less so. So tubes are technically the best. I don't know any company making our type of paint in a tube, though. Right then. Eternal Rhombus, hi. Hey Ed, what do you recommend is the best way to get a 1500 point Japanese list that is cost effective and effective in game? Ugh, that's a horrible question. I don't think there is an answer to cost effective, because all of the infantry at the moment are either old metals or CO cast. There are no plastics yet. In terms of actually effective on the tabletop, that's difficult because there's different ways to look at things. And whilst the Japanese don't have much, there's actually quite a few different ways to play the Japanese at the moment. And I haven't played enough to know which is going to be the more effective way. So I know a lot of people, and myself included, have gone with Shiboru spam. So that's Shiboru rifles, battle frame, and then the various vehicles that can take Shiboru cannon. You can very easily get a lot of rift dice going on, and the more rift dice you have, just the easier it becomes to keep running them, because you're more likely to get the active or surging out of it. Although surging's not that important. I like the Shiboru rifle squad. They're just very fragile. I much prefer a battle frame squad with Shiboru. But even then, they're not super powerful. And then the Shiboru cannon on the various vehicles is very expensive points-wise for what they actually can achieve. I think assault frames are my current obsession. And the next time I go to a game, which won't be till the end of the month actually, well, the next event is at the end of the month. I'm hoping to get someone over for just a pickup game before then. Oh yeah, that guy's looking good. I need to sort out his moustache. The other option that a lot of people have pointed out is bolt action tanks. Chiha, Horo, Hargos, 95 points for a +3 anti-tank gun. Roll around with just a bunch of light tanks. Forget the ones that just have machine guns. Ignore those completely. Anything that's got either a light anti-tank gun or a light howitzer, and you can bring loads of them. They are 95 points for the Hargo. Some of them are 150 or 130 points. Can someone look up what a basic Chiha is? Like an early mod Chiha that's something like 150 points. So you can bring quite a few just basic tanks. No rift weapons. Nothing in the way of like actual conflict units. Just a bunch of good old-fashioned tanks. And I'm not entirely sure how I'm going to go about it, but I think for the next event I attend, I'm going to try to go with like a fairly mobilized list. So assault frames on transport vehicles and a lot of bolt action tanks. Oh, what are we saying? James says trucks, Kurogane, lots of suicide troops. Oh yeah, the lunge mine. Bring the lunge mine. Bring loads of the lunge mine, as many as you can, because the lunge mine veteran is 26 points. It can take out walkers. Remember that when you charge a walker in close combat, the walker fights first. But the lunge mine, you're not charging into close combat. You're charging and then immediately setting off the explosive, which means that goes off before the walker fights. You're dead either way because it's a lunge mine, but you always get to get that hit in, and it automatically hits with pen 8. If you look at my last video, I nearly ruined my first ever wargaming event. Great title. There was a Japanese player ran halfway across the board with a lunge mine and blew up a Heuschrecker. It's great. If you hit a light walker, you can't not do damage. You might not kill it, but you can't do no damage at all. You automatically pen just because you're hitting with pen 8. Essentially, if you hit anything that's armor up to armor 9, if you roll a 1, that's a glance, like superficial damage, and if you roll a 2, that's a pen. So anything that's 10 or more, you can roll a 1 and fail to do damage. But anything that's armor 9 or less, you always will be doing damage. They are great. I think I did relatively well on that face compared to how I usually do, which is terribly. Yeah, I think he's done. I think that is the very first model that I've completely painted, beginning to end, on the live stream. Well, since I restarted streaming. I mean, he doesn't look that good if you look that close, but yeah, in real life he looks pretty good. The way I'm doing the arm, I really like this style. I kind of came up with it on a whim, and it works, and so I'm doing everything like this. The brown, multiple layers of brown, and then the tan highlight just works really well. Yeah, it's a bit spotty in places because that light brown is, sorry, the tan is a very old paint. That's better. Yeah, that fixed that. All right, one model successfully done. Let's do, because I definitely want to bring this model at some point, is the Shibito, Daughter of the Motherland. So we did base coats and a wash previously, so we can paint basically everything now. I only put a little bit of red on the wet palette, so I might need to go back for more. $125. The Chiha. We could actually come up with a really nice armored platoon for the Japanese with only bolt action units, but specifically tailoring it for conflict. What's the assault gun called? Is that the Horo? Maybe. One Horo, pair of Chiha, pair of Hago. Hago puts shots into like heavy infantry, especially things like Stahltruppen or zombies. The Chiha either support them or go after... No, actually, yeah, the Chiha is going to be mainly anti-infantry duty as well. And then the Horo deals with the vehicles. There's got to be a better option. I mean, other than lunge mine, there's got to be a better option for anti-vehicle work. Who asked that earlier in the stream when we were talking about detailed models versus smooth areas on models? Because I've just hit a part of a model, this cloak, that is extremely open and smooth, and immediately, without even thinking about it, or without like making a conscious decision to do so, I've started painting in a texture. So if you see the way that I'm very, very quickly striping, I'm creating loads and loads and loads of very small stripes over where I'm highlighting. And I just couldn't do that on the samurai. On his legs, I just couldn't do that. Because there is that, like those multiple seams going on. Whereas here, just automatically, as soon as I've kind of picked up the model and got paint on the brush, I'm already going in for that texture. And I do need some more paint. Grim Tim Tim says, just thought of something fun. A railgun stug. Oh, I left the red out. I've got a Hetzer with magnetized weapons, and I want to put a railgun on it. It would be very silly. A rug. A railgun stug is a rug. Yes, okay. Tesla Matilda. So, I actually know exactly what my ideal Konflikt 47 armoured vehicle would be. And it comes from my love of dorky armoured cars. and it's definitely not some super high powered nonsense, but it is fun and it's silly. I want the greatest armored car of all time, the Batmobile looking thing that is the Rolls-Royce armored car, with an open top turret with a twin Tesla heavy rifle in it. It would be bad. It would be rubbish. It would immediately die. But it would look so good. And I want to have like an automata head and a human head next to each other in the turret, just arguing over who gets to shoot. Give it recce. I think it would work. James, every time I've ever run a vehicle with recce, I've forgotten that it has recce. I have never ever once, not in 4 years of playing Bot Action, have I ever used recce. Because not once in 4 years have I even remembered that my vehicles have recce. There you go. So, going back to the debate on simple models versus complex models, I have created much more of a texture here than I would have been able to do if it had texture sculpted in. And I did that. I painted that on purpose. It's not perfect, not by a long way. But that's my painting that's done that, rather than it having been part of the model to begin with. How do I ban you? James says, that's why you learn your lists and don't put things in ice cream tubs to psych your opponent. I don't put things in ice cream tubs to psych my opponent. I put my models in ice cream tubs because ice cream tubs are the superior method of transporting models. Especially the Kellys. The Kelly's ice cream have the best tubs. And my local shop, my corner shop, has Kelly's all the time. I really wanted to get like an Italian ice cream for my Italians, and a German ice cream for my Germans, and an American ice cream for my Americans. Just that I can come with thematic ice cream tubs. And that would cost far more than like a proper carry case, but it would be so much cooler. And also cooler, lol, ice cream. I smashed my brush against... Didn't mean to do that. I think that is pretty much done on the uniform, on the coat on the coat front. I've probably spent more time on this Shibito than on any of my other Shibitos. Especially some of them. My my 3D printed torso set of Shibito are some of the fastest models I've ever painted. Probably not as fast as my... what are they called? The Strafbat. I did a video on them a couple years back. The fastest models I've ever painted, or whatever it was, the video title, I can't remember. But that was... I painted 7? I painted 7 in about 20 minutes. Stop knocking the camera. Andre says, well done. Hopefully I'll get there. I'm not bold enough for those decisions. Well, see, that's where you're making the mistake. You're trying to make decisions. That's unfair, because there are actually lots of decisions that go into painting a model. But when you hit a point, when you look at a part of a model, whatever your first thought is when you see it, just go for it. So, like, I'm about to paint her shirt, her armour, and it's green. Now, I've got some green on the wet palette, but it's a bit chalky and chunky, so I'm going to refresh it. But I've got 2 different green paints. Now, I could go for a nice rich dark green, or I could go for a desaturated lighter green. Or a mix of both. And I went with a light green for no reason whatsoever. Eternal Rhombus says, are the new Assault Frame resin models monopose? Do you always have to give one the Shiboro cannon? That's not a Shiboro cannon, but yes, they are. The thing is, their CO cast resin, which is very easy to convert. So I actually did a conversion. I don't have it with up here at the moment. My Assault Frame Officer, they added an extra submachine gun arm for the assault frames in my box, and there's a couple of other people who've had this as well. And so I have I cut the arms on the officer to take away the light machine gun, and I gave him the submachine gun, and then I took some plastic bits from the Japanese infantry box, and I gave him a katana in his other hand. Sorry, not katana, gunto. And it's the disposable rocket launcher model. That's the one you're thinking of. And I think... give me a sec. Ow. Please know that I just delved my hand into a box of sprues to answer this question. Because in my massive collection of instructions for all of the models that I've ever had, including ones from other companies, and the Hetzer we were talking about, there is this. So these are the models in the set, and this is the one that we want to focus on. So this is the one with the disposable launcher, and you can see that even though it's a monopose model, it's made of four components: Sashimono, the head, most of the body, and then the arms and the weapon. So what you could do is cut right here along the wrist through the weapon, and again here on this side, kind of, you'd be cutting from this kind of angle, and you could put a sword in one hand and maybe a pistol or a submachine gun, whatever you could find, for the other hand. If you can use a Type 100, you give him a Type 100. It's not the same as the submachine gun that the other models are using, but it's certainly appropriate. And so he'd be standing there with a submachine gun and a sword, like kind of in this kind of pose. Possibly, maybe even put the sword in that hand. So this hand would be holding the sword, and it'd be raised up like right next to his body, kind of thing. And it just depends on what parts you have access to. Like, how big is your bits box? My bits box is several decades old, so I've got a lot of stuff in there that I can go with. It's not a terribly difficult conversion to make. No, it's not a Shibori cannon. No infantry choice at the moment can take a Shibori cannon. It's just the options that for Shibori rifle, and they are all. It's all or nothing with Shibori rifle. You have, every model has to have a Shibori rifle or none. You can't have just one in the squad. What's interesting actually is the battle frame squad can take a light machine gun, but if you take Shibori rifles, you can't take the light machine gun anymore. So it is an all or nothing. Right, let's grab the focus back. There we go. But the squads, just like many other squads, can take the... I need to remember how it's pronounced. But the disposable launchers that everyone in Conflict can take. And that is what that model has. That's kind of all that's needed there. Right, time for some... If you would like Eternal Rhombus, go back and check on one of my videos recently titled... I can't remember what I titled the video. I made some more tokens, or I finished off the set of tokens. And you'll see the thumbnail is of some various models, and in front of each group of models is a very small, it's a base with some stuff on. It's not a full model in its own right. But one of those is this. And this. Although this one misprinted a bit. This is a rough copy of that launcher, and this is a rocket pack representing the ammo for it. And so I made these up on a separate base. You can glue them to model if you wanted to, but this is in. But the way I did it is I made them on a separate base, so that you can put that as a token with the squad to say this squad has the launchers or anti-tank grenades, or you can do this with other things as well, obviously. And because you can expend them, you either shoot one per turn from a squad, and you can go on forever shooting one per turn, or if you shoot, or if you really need to, you can expend them all and roll d6, and you get d6 shots. But you can't shoot them anymore after that. And it's actually something to be said for a completely mundane squad. If you look in the conflict list, the first infantry squad for every nation is a mundane squad. Where did I put the sand? There we go. And the mundane squad, they can take rifles and submachine guns and light machine guns and all of the usual stuff that you get in bolt action, and flamethrowers. But they can also take the disposable launchers, and that's the same for every nation. That'll do. And that means that if you took, say, for example, the minimum size regular squad, so 7 models, and you gave them the launchers, which is 5 points a model, you're looking at just over 100 points for a squad that could potentially, in a pinch, put out up to 6 Pen 6 shots at 12 inches. And I'm looking forward to the day where I can put that squad on an objective, on ambush, and just look at some Shrek Wolfen and say, come have a go. Come play the numbers. Because there is an easy chance that I could completely wipe you out on the ambush order on the way in before you even get to charge. Or before you even get to me during the charge. The other thing I need to do here is paint out this bony arm. So I don't use white very often, but let's paint some white. Andre says, do you have any plans for another If I Had 50 Quid video? I enjoy those. I like those as well. I have a list of shops that I do want to go to. And kind of, or like go to the website of it and do that format. The problem is that they take far longer than they have any right to. When I first started it, I thought, oh yeah, this is a nice, easy win kind of video. I can just throw something out in a few hours and get a video when I'm behind on painting or whatever. And it really doesn't work that way. It ends up being quite intensive. Now, I do like doing them, and I think they are quite a fun thing to do. But I've got a lot of ideas for videos and just never enough time to do them. And so a video that takes longer to make is going to end up further down the list, unfortunately. It's not to say that I won't do one again, and I probably will. This song always reminds me of Linkin Park. It's got that vibe to it. What do I have? Hold on one moment. Yep, I still have my list. Yeah, here's some examples of some problems that I had when it comes to some of the websites that I would love to look at. So I've got a list of websites that some people have recommended in various comments, and things like Anvil Industries. The vast majority of what Anvil Industries sells is bits and like parts for models, not complete sets. But they've also got a lot of digital stuff. And I have said in my rules that I will allow digital stuff if that's their primary thing. And so if I go to like on my mini factory shop, does that make sense to do a £50 challenge on my mini factory shop? Similar thing with Victoria Miniatures. That's a lot of bits and parts. I tried Crooked Dice. So Crooked Dice is one that I actually did want to, and I started filming it. But the website was just so unreliable, I couldn't do it. North Star. Go and have a look at North Star's website, and you tell me what on that website is actually from North Star, and what on that website is from other companies. Because I cannot tell. And when you click the link down the side, sometimes it takes you to another website entirely. It's really confusing. It's not something I can just sit down and do. Some of these other ones, Black Scorpion, Games Workshop, Victrix, Morphidius, Eureka Miniatures, Spectra Miniatures, Great Escape Games, a lot of these others I can do. And so there are options here. Right, completely new set of paints needed now, because now I want to do a skin of the zombie. And so I need purple and grey. Don't need much of either though. One of the, yeah, just as an example, the Sarissa Precision, I did a video on them, and that took me 8 hours to film. And I very easily could fall into that again for other videos or for other websites. I think that is all that model needs. I've got some fake blood effect that I put on my Shibito, but I put that on after the varnish because it's extremely glossy because it's blood effect, and I want to maintain that. So I always put that on after. Well, we've been entirely successful, it seems, in this stream. Because that's not just one, that is 2 complete models. How about that? Let's get the focus about there. There we go. So I'll put the basing on, give them a varnish, and then put the blood effect on the zombie. Otherwise, they're done. They're looking pretty nice, actually. In comparison to some of the very fast painted stuff I've done in the last few weeks and months, it's been nice to... I've spent, coming up to 9 o'clock now, so we'll end the stream soon. So I've spent, 2 hours on 2 models. I've had a lot of fun with these, especially the samurai. It's a really nice sculpt. Just the amount of detail going on in there. Yes, remind me to post a link to that in the in the description because it is well worth it. And yeah, look at all this stuff that I didn't get to. I've got my Hago, and I've got my Ghosts, and I've got my Axis stuff over here. Didn't even look at those today. And my Chiha, my second Chiha. And actually on my table, although I'm going to be doing this as part of the video or not on the live stream, is the Sasori Type 2. And yes, I'm very deliberately covering the claws because I want that to be a surprise when the video comes out. There's a lot of work to go into painting the Sasori specifically, because that is a big and complex model. Right, well, if anyone has any questions before I end the stream, I will give you a couple of moments to do that. I will talk about what's coming up. So I am planning to keep streaming once a week on a Monday, potentially streaming more often. Given that I actually quite like doing these streams, I might be able to do two in a week. I mean, if I end up doing 7 in a week, that'd be great, but unlikely. But I've managed to do 1 a week consistently now for a little while. So if I can keep that up, I can maybe start thinking about a second one. And do I want to do that on a Wednesday or a Thursday or a Friday? I don't know yet. But at the moment, sticking with 1 a week on a Monday. Andre says, how many eggs do you eat, mate? You what? You bloody what, mate? Can you smell it from there? How many eggs do I eat an egg for breakfast every day. Other than that, I don't really eat eggs very much. My video for this week, I've done all the recording and I just need to script it and edit it, which means I should actually have it out on time without panicking on Saturday morning. And that is my proxy assault frame. I've got a squad of 10 of them now, which is great. Plus all of the official models that I already had. Plus this guy, who's I'm going to use as an assault frame. So I've got loads of assault frames now. Really good. This is actually what we mentioned earlier about what models, how to build a good Japanese list. And it's either Shiboru spam, assault frame spam, or bolt action vehicle spam. And what I'm going to try and do is a bunch of assault frames with some bolt action vehicles, because I think a balance of those two would be pretty good. And that's why I've got this guy coming along as well. See cartons everywhere. Yes, yes. All of my egg cartons that I. Well, the thing is, these cartons don't go off, right? So these eggs, I don't know. Actually, I can find out because it might. These might actually have a date on them. 21st of October, doesn't say what year though. That's the same. $2015. So my Chiha is in an egg carton from 2015. It's a decade-old egg carton. And yes, pics of the models. I will try to make sure I get the chance to do that for these two, because they actually look pretty good. Alright, well, if everyone's done asking questions, I will end up the stream. Thank you very much to everyone for coming past. We had quite a lot of comments today, which is good. And yeah, make sure that you all at home are also painting and having an enjoyable time about things. A nice relaxing track to end things on. There we go. And that, the tank I might do first, but the ghosts and the Axis stuff will probably not be touched until next stream on Monday next week. Well, thank you very much for everyone for popping past. I'm ED-SKaR, always will be, and I'll see you next time.